Oh, yeah.
What's up, everybody?
How we doing?
Well, I'm going to start this stopwatch.
That was the least lackluster intro.
Well,
Are we doing it again?
Oh, I was going to just keep talking.
Oh. All right.
I didn't mean to.
Roll the intro.
What's up, everybody?
Man, super glad that you're here hanging out with us
That's
on
right.
the Tug of More.
That is just a conversation between two friends.
That's right.
Where we are, where we want to be. There's a big space in between it.
Our context of life and leadership is through ministry.
That's true.
And Jesus.
Yep.
And so we love Jesus around here.
That's
and
our
so
context,
you'll
yep.
hear us talking about the Bible.
Yep.
And a lot of our kind of background is church-based.
Yes.
And so I know that a lot of the people that listen to the Tug of More are a part of our church here at More Church.
That's right.
But then there's people all over the country, really, that are engaged in the content that we're creating.
Yep.
And man, we're really glad that you're here.
Super glad that you're here.
It is October.
That's right.
And so that means that all of the Halloween decorations are coming out.
Exactly.
And I took the kids to Sam's the other day, and they had like this giant skeleton witch-looking thing.
Yes.
Dude, scary as a mug.
They have all of the scary, spooky, but I've been seeing these huge skeletons.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that what it was? It's like
No, they had that at Home Depot. We saw that at Home Depot. It's
Maybe
like
that's what it was.
12 foot tall.
Yes, it's humongous.
Straight up devil skeleton.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my word! People in our neighborhood, they go all out. Like
Yeah.
they are our next door neighbors. They will do like a whole what is it called, cemetery display. But they just moved up to the lake, and their daughter bought their house and moved in. So I don't know if she will do the same.
No, not just that. Their neighbors. We went to their house trick or treating last year, and they give out candy to the kids.
Yeah.
And mini fireballs
They
to
sure
the
do.
adult. Not
They sure
fireball like the Jawbreaker.
No, not that.
Fireball like the we about to get tipsy while we're trick or treating. We're about to get hit by a car. Dude, I was
It's
like,
true.
what?
So if you need some fireball, you can come trick or treating next door to our house.
No, you need to go and go
Just
drink some
kidding.
milk.
Yes. Drink some milk. And so this time of year, you see all of the costumes. People are planning and preparing. What costume are you going to wear? What are you going to do for Halloween? Here at More Church, in the years past, we've done series that are based in character themes.
Oh, yep.
Like costume themes. The very first one we did is still probably my favorite. We did a walk through Proverbs, and we did I Pity the Fool.
I pity the fool.
Yes, which is what's his name?
Mr.
What?
T.
I was like, what just happened in my brain?
I dressed up like Mr. T. We did a video of me slowly transforming into Mr. T, and I would go into staff meetings. It was like office style.
Yes.
And I would be yelling, I pity the fool and stuff.
Yes, except your name is Trustin, so
Yeah.
it was like Mr. T. It was very appropriate.
First
it was
name,
wonderful.
Mr. Middle name is that period. Last name is T. So
It was super fun. And we've done,
we did
Don't Feed Frankenstein.
Don't
right?
Feed Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Can we roll a little bit of that intro video?
What's that, my precious? You're hungry. You know that I can't feed my Frankenstein anymore. That's just not who I am. Don't feed Frankenstein.
Yeah.
We recorded this and shot this and had a guy sing it. We
Oh,
we
that's
wrote the
right.
song. I wrote it's not a very good song. We
Well,
wrote
yeah,
the song.
it's fun, though.
But it's kind of an Alice Cooper song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is. So we've done lots of different themes like that throughout the years, just because it is the month of October.
Last year I dressed up like Rocky,
Yeah.
but I was still relatively chunkier than I am now. And so a bunch of the young adults didn't know what I was. They thought I was dressed up like a trash man. Because I was wearing like the gray sweatsuit.
That helps your confidence.
Yeah, it
didn't
helped my confidence a lot.
I bet.
Pastor, are you a trash man? I wanted to just die. I wanted to just be raptured.
Yes, well.
I'm done. Take me up
take
like
me.
Methuselah.
Yeah.
Was it Methuselah?
Yeah, right?
I don't remember.
I gotta Google.
I'll ask Titus. He'll know.
No, yeah, exactly. So that's what Halloween is in the month of October. But here around the church world, we don't say the word Halloween very often.
Whoa, no. That is the devil's holiday. It actually is the devil's holiday.
Yes, we call it things like fall festivals, costume Sundays. We say phrases like that because
pumpkin party.
Yeah, what are they having?
Candy
in youth?
bash.
What's our youth thing called?
We
You
used
don't
to
even
have,
know.
We used to have pumpkin smashing.
We used to do pumpkin smash. They're doing something else. They're calling it. I gotta look it
the
up now.
Boo Bash.
It's something like that.
No,
oh, I
we
think that's right.
we shut that down. No, because Boo is ghosts.
Oh, what is it called then?
We don't
I
mess
gotta
with no
find
ghosts.
it. I gotta find it. Okay.
So we're gonna. This is. I'm not really sure that I want to do this one. I'm not sure this is even going to be a good idea.
But we're doing it.
But we've been asked.
Yeah.
And if you ask, we're going to talk about it.
That's right.
Halloween. What's the deal?
What's the deal with Halloween? What do we think about it? What do we feel about it?
Growing up, what was your...
Oh, bro.
What was your
my
vibe?
first memory of a Halloween costume that I wore was being a sheep.
You know what we need to do? We need to put some photos in. Do you have a photo of you as a sheep?
I don't know if I do.
Oh, I do.
But I will try to find.
Brenda was the best.
Yeah, your family was very good at capturing all of those.
Yeah.
I remember being a sheep, and like my dad was a shepherd, and then my sister and I were sheep because growing up, the church, the first church that I grew up in, like when I was younger, was a Baptist church, and we would do the theme every year. You had to dress like Bible times. That was the whole thing. And so we didn't have Halloween. We had a fall festival.
Yeah.
And then you would go and you would like walk the gym and they would have like different booths or whatever. Is that what you did growing up?
Yeah. Our church would have, fall festival. And I remember one year I wanted to be a lion tamer.
Okay.
Like kind of, back in the day, they didn't have all these new kids movies and stuff.
Right,
we didn't have the Avengers when I was
Right.
little.
You didn't have all that. Yeah.
And so I wanted to be a lion tamer. We went to the zoo or something. I saw a lion tamer. But when we went to, trick-or-treating, lion tamer. School, lion tamer. Church, Daniel in the Lion's Den. You just didn't know the difference.
No.
You just thought Daniel was dressed up kind of crazy, carrying a lion around. Daniel in the Lion's Den.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, I don't know, sometime in the 90s-ish, then our church transitioned from, and we moved churches, but our church transitioned to, we didn't have to do Bible characters, but it was no scary costumes were allowed.
Okay.
And it would say it on the like advertisement paper flyer thing. It would say like fall festival, and then it asked us like no scary costumes,
You need to say no scary /
I know, slutty. I knew you were going to say it. Yeah.
Because straight up, anything. Slutty nurse.
But back then...
Slutty bumblebee.
Back then, there was no TikTok. Back then, there
Halloween
was
is the opportunity for girls that used to be in my youth group to dress like some hoes on the internet.
Oh my gosh.
I have to unfollow him.
If you were in his youth group, I apologize on behalf of him. And
I don't.
Therefore, he did not mean that.
I don't. Pull your junk together.
But back then, there was
shirt
no
on.
TikTok. There was no whatever. And so people would dress... Yeah, in different things. One time my cousin and I, we were rich snobs is what we decided. And all that meant was we wore like fancy dress. We just wanted an excuse to wear a fancy dress.
Oh, okay.
And so like we went to like, I don't even know, one of the like Goodwill type places and found like old fashioned fancy dresses. And that's what we were.
You know, one of the greatest costumes that used to be back in the day that was allowed?
What?
Was dudes would just dress up like chicks.
Yeah, you can't do that anymore.
It's not allowed anymore.
No, you can't do that
It used to be
anymore.
one of the best costumes.
Like the Sadie Hawkins dance or whatever thing. Yeah.
But now...
No, you can't do that.
Canceled.
No, I dress up like a cowgirl a lot of times because I think that was just like easy.
No, I went all out. My mom... So I think that my mom and dad weren't allowed to trick-or-treat.
Right.
Like the idea of anything associated with the concept of Halloween was the devil.
Right.
And so they weren't allowed to, but then when they had me, my mom went yard. She made me a spider costume once. Here's a picture. Whoosh. And dude, all those arms were connected. And so I had 8 arms that moved. I was Elvis one year.
Yep.
And my dad put a speaker in the guitar and I would walk around and play Elvis music.
That's fun.
Yeah, all kinds of things. We would go for it.
Yes. And so I remember, so you went trick-or-treating or you only went to fall festivals?
We went to both, but we played this game where like we didn't talk about that we had been trick-or-treating at the church.
Hold on.
Not really played a game.
I know, but you're 40 years old, 40-year-old man, and you just said, we played a game because that's probably what your mom said. Hey, Preston, we're going to play this game.
We're just
we're not going to tell anybody.
It was very taboo.
Yes.
Trick-or-treating was very taboo, as it still is today.
Correct. I remember.
Which is why we're doing this potentially difficult podcast.
Yes. I remember we lived in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and we were going to our church's fall festival. And this is the year that I remember wearing like the red cowgirl hat. And like my mom made, it wasn't like the teenage years of cowboy, which was like, oh, I barely tried. This is like my mom made us full costumes and everything.
Yeah.
She like dresses she did, I don't know, sewed or whatever. Anyway, and so we had these neighbors that we super liked. And I remember she kept asking me, like, are you going to come to my house for Halloween? Are you going to come? And I was just like, no, I had never been trick-or-treating in my whole life. And I was like, Mom, she keeps asking, are we going to get to go to her house? What are we going to do? Well, my dad worked at the church, so he inevitably left before we did.
Of course.
And so he's at the church early. And so my mom is bringing my sister and I to the church. And so she was like, yeah, we can go stop by their house. That'll be fine. You know, they're our friends. We're just going by their house.
Yeah.
We're not trick-or-treating. We're just going by their house, right? So we go by their house and we trick-or-treat. And I'm like, oh my word, this is so fun. And I walked to the door and I said, trick-or-treat. Oh my gosh, they gave me candy. It was amazing. And so then I'm like, look at my mom and I gave her this face like, just like one more, right? And so she let us go to like 6 houses.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the most exciting thing in my whole life. And a little bit like I got away with something. And
Yeah.
we got in the car and 100% my mom said, don't you tell your dad that we did this.
Yeah.
We're going to the church
Yeah.
now. And that's what we did the rest of the night.
Yeah.
But I felt all night so cool. Like I had a secret that I did this amazing cool thing that other people do every year.
Yeah. So there's this controversy about Halloween and Christians celebrating Halloween.
Yeah.
Here's where I stand on it.
Okay. Let's talk about it.
I have trick-or-treated every year of my life,
Okay.
and I have taken my children trick-or-treating every year of their lives.
Yeah.
But I have never celebrated Halloween.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that participating in a national activity
Correct.
that you go outside, you knock on your neighbor's door, you put your kid dressed up as a transformer to go and get some free Kit Kats, for me,
Right.
is not devil worship.
Right.
Now, period. Now, I understand that there is demonic and occultish activities that are associated and affiliated with Halloween.
Correct.
And I understand that there are somewhere some warlocks that are doing some seances around peanut M&Ms.
Yeah.
And they pass those things out to the kids. I know that that is a possibility and that's happening. But I and my family are not celebrating the occult.
Yeah.
We're not, that is not what our intent is.
No.
If you were to call my kids in here and ask them, what's Halloween? Say, oh, Halloween is where we order a costume or we go find a costume.
Right.
And then we walk around with mommy and daddy and we laugh with Aaron and Whitney and drive on Mr. Aaron's golf cart and we ring doorbells and we get a bucket full of candy.
Right.
And it's awesome. And then we trade our candy and then we go home.
Yeah.
Their perspective of what Halloween would not be occultish.
Absolutely. And I think that you said it, like there are really, people have convictions. Some people have strong convictions based in what they feel. And I think that this is one of those places where you just have to use your conviction to make the right decision for you. Because yeah, for me and my family, like we go to our neighbors' houses, neighbors where we feel safe, where we feel joyful. And in fact, for us, it's honestly been one of the best opportunities for us to get to know our neighbors and able to actually shine the light of Jesus wherever we've taught our kids since they were young. No matter where you are, you're shining, and no matter where you go, no matter who you're with. And yet we also teach them that they have to use discernment wherever they go. And so I'll be honest, there are a few houses in our neighborhood that we avoid.
Yeah.
There are a
same.
few houses that I know, like, I'm not thinking they're doing seances and all those things, but I know that they're taking it to a different level that was just not really what we're comfortable with. And so like the fun and what you said, the fun of a national like night of going together and getting candy with the kids and allowing it to just be fun and joyful. I don't feel like for us, we never felt like that was something we were going to keep our kids from being a part of, but rather allow them to see that they can be the light everywhere that they are and that they can be kind and loving to their neighbors. And then yet I also know people who have strong convictions and I'm like, hey, if you have those convictions, I'm not saying you're a weirdo. I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah.
I think you're following the convictions that you have for you and your family. But at the same time, I also think we have to be very aware and use proper discernment of where we allow ourselves to step, where we allow our feet to go, where we allow our kids to go. And so, like, again, a neighborhood with your friends and fun, like, that's one thing. But it is a real thing to talk about, like, Halloween and avoiding certain things. Because, like, for me, I've never watched Friday the 13th on Halloween.
Right.
I've never even watched, I don't even know. The other day I was on the treadmill and, like, watching a show on my phone, like, while I was on the treadmill, and the ad now is out for some new, like, scary, weird, demonic movie that is out, and, like, you have to be super aware of it in this season. That it kind of, like, freaked me out. Like, I had to be like, I am not listening to this. I am not even paying attention to it while it's happening, because there is a real enemy.
Which, let's talk about that. Which is why I kind of think that we need to do this episode.
Absolutely.
Because every October rolls around, and what happens is in your Netflix queue and your Hulu queue or whatever, is all of these scary movies that pop up that then we just think, oh, it's that time of year. We're going to just watch some of this stuff.
Right.
And I think that we have to be very aware of where our line is.
Yes.
Everybody should have a line that they draw.
Yeah.
Everybody's line is probably going to be a little bit different depending upon your experience, your education, your conviction, your how you were raised.
Yeah.
But there should be a line. There shouldn't be no line. And I think the danger is that when October rolls around is that people just start letting all of this stuff into their minds, into their homes, into their children's lives without realizing that they're not drawing a line.
Right. And I think
some of this stuff is like demonic.
Absolutely.
And no, are you not going to be demon possessed if you watch this movie? No. Well, maybe not. But what you're doing is you're opening a doorway into this idea that then makes it fun.
Yeah.
Or makes it mystical or makes it not real.
Right.
And because we're watching movies with seances and curses and all this magical stuff, then we think that, well, I'm going to go see a palm reader. It's not a big deal.
Right.
Or I'm going to do my horoscopes.
Right.
And my horoscopes aren't a big deal. Or you know what? I'm going to go and buy some crystals because they put off good energy and where. Listen, all of that stuff is connected to occultish activity, which we should not be associated with as believers.
Right.
But I think that we have to decide where's our line.
And so what I can hear on the other side of that is somebody, and I have had people talk to me, okay, well, if you feel like there's a line that has to be drawn, then why not avoid it altogether? If this does not bring glory to God, why not avoid it altogether? And my thought is you can, but then the other part is there's lots of things in life that don't bring glory to God that we're still a part of. And so what's true is we have to be willing to draw lines in every area of our life.
Right.
You and Titus, we all have gone together to see monster truck shows.
Yeah.
Monster truck shows do not inherently bring glory to God. That's not what their purpose is.
Yeah.
But they're fun and they're engaging but then I'm sure that there's rowdy dudes at the monster truck shows.
Yeah.
And so there's a line that you have to teach your son to draw.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, in this, I understand the thought or the idea of, well, why don't you, if you're saying it's demonic, then why don't you just avoid it altogether? But to me, it was really important as a parent, especially, to teach my kids how to be in the world but not of it. That they're going to live in a world that is going to have all kind of things. The internet does not inherently bring glory to God.
Right.
But I can teach my kids how to properly use those things in order to have an enjoyable life, be able to be a part of the real world that they live in, but not necessarily fall prey to some of the traps that are there.
I think that it becomes a slippery slope, and we have to really decide where we're drawing the line.
Right.
All over the place.
Exactly. That's why I just feel like it's an important caveat to have.
The other extreme is that we just go and buy a compound somewhere and we move out of this world.
Yep.
Because do you still shop at Target?
Right.
Because if you shop at Target, they support
all kinds of things.
Non-biblical beliefs.
Yeah.
You still buy Starbucks ever?
Right.
Do you give them $1 a year?
Right.
Well, they have been really vocal about supporting agendas that are not biblical.
Right.
I remember when I was young, in the city that we lived in, it was a dry county.
Yeah.
Which means they didn't sell alcohol. And then they allowed it that they could start selling alcohol at grocery stores. Mm-hmm. And it was this big thing in the churches. They were talking about it. And so people were like, we're not going to go to these grocery stores. And so we'd drive far to go and buy groceries.
Oh, wow,
but after a while, it was like, dude, because they sell beer in this grocery store, we still have to function.
Right.
We still have to go buy food.
Right.
And so like that line for a lot of good, well-intended families, the line had to move.
Right.
And it's not like, I don't know where the line gets drawn, and it's different. It's different for everybody.
It's different for
and
everybody.
so for me,
I just think it's important.
taking my kids trick-or-treating and giving them that experience in a more sheltered context, I think is better than trying to pull them away and avoid everything.
Well, because something my husband used to say that really is something we kind of took into our parenting is like, if everything is wrong, then as young people, you start to question, well, then maybe nothing is wrong.
Yeah.
If we don't teach our kids that actually we live in a world where we have to make decisions, we have to trust the discernment of the Holy Spirit to really learn how to draw proper lines. Because if we just say that we have to avoid everything all the time and everything we're against, and we ban everything and we're against everything, then that's very confusing. And then, like you said, it's not realistic.
Right.
And then what can often happen is a rebellion to swing to the other direction,
right.
which I strongly believe. I really strongly believe that because of our willingness to say, hey, we're going to talk about all the things, and then we're going to together talk about the line that there is, that's what helps make healthy, whole individuals. And so I think it's important part of the conversation.
There's nothing wrong with watching football.
Right.
But there's some guys that watch football and they get drunk every game.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe that's not the best.
And they sit on their couch from Thursday to Sunday night, Monday night football, all the things. They don't help their wife with nothing. They don't do nothing.
They get hammered. They drink 10,000 calories. They eat 10,000 calories of food, and they punch holes in the drywall.
Right.
If you just looked at that, football is bad.
Football is bad, right.
But then if you look at groups of guys getting together and doing fantasy football and buying jerseys and cheering and having fun, football's not bad.
Right.
And so I think that we have to have a real honest look at what do we do. And so like
and like you said,
and this has been a contention for Rachel and I.
Yeah.
You know, Rachel grew up in Mexico on the mission field until she was 10.
Yeah.
And so there, the occultish activity was a real thing. People would try to cut Rachel's hair and to cast spells on her family.
Right.
Weird stuff
Yeah.
was happening in Mexico and still is. The Day of the Dead, that culture in Mexico, the spirit realm, is something that they're a little bit more in tune than we are here. And so it's something Rachel and I have had to kind of process and understand. And it's not always easy.
It's not always easy. And so I think it's just important to say every family makes their own decisions and their own line, but there is a line that then becomes a dangerous territory to walk into. You and I, over the last decade, we have friends, relatives, even employees that we've had to have conversation with about what that line is of things that are like, hey, actually what you're a part of is a very dangerous slope.
Yeah.
And like not allowing what you said, doors to open to things that then really do take us into the occult. Like that is a slippery and a scary thing. And so I think it's important now that we've talked about, okay, drawing the line, but what are some things that we should definitely, as believers, stay away from?
So I think that there's some categories. I think that there's like places.
Yeah.
I think there's media.
Yeah.
And I think there's like actual activities.
Yeah.
So I would say that it's not smart to put yourself in a compromising situation where you don't really know what's happening around there.
Right.
I'm not taking my kids to haunted houses that are over the line. Now, again, the line's different for everybody.
Yeah.
I think, now, I haven't been to Six Flags, but like Six Flags, they have Fright Night, and I don't know like how far they go.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that that's going to be a tamer version than what they're doing at that place in Fort Worth with a giant 8-foot or 8-story demon that like people are puking and passing out and they're grabbing you and people are getting in fights and there's drugs sold in the parking lot. Like, I'm not really sure that that's going to be a great environment for you to go and feel edified after you leave.
Absolutely.
I think that's a dangerous thing. And maybe we should be aware too that there's some age restrictions.
Oh, for sure. Man.
I can't tell you how many times
Good grief.
My son will come home and he'll tell me stories about movies that his friends are watching.
Yeah.
He's 9,
Yeah.
8. And they're watching I'm shocked at the movies that parents let their kids watch.
Yeah.
That are scary movies, that are violent movies, that are full of profanity. And like, or I'll go to the movie theater.
That's what I was thinking.
The four of us will go to a movie theater to watch a movie. And there's a 6-year-old in there, and I'm like, this is scary for me, kind of.
An adult level, like, yeah.
We went and saw it.
It was the Rambo movie,
right? Yeah, the
right?
Rambo movie.
Yeah.
The most recent one, it's about child trafficking, and there's parents in there with 9-year-old, 10-year-old girls.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, you're going to traumatize this
Right.
girl.
It's
or
terrifying.
You're going to desensitize them.
That's the concern. Yeah.
And there's this new thing out, something Five Finger Freddy. Is that a thing? It's like a kid. There's like made a TV show about Freddy Krueger as a kid, and it's like a cartoon. And they're bringing Chucky and all these other all these other characters into this kids cartoon, and it's being like pushed to kids.
Yeah.
And parents just think it's Hulu or Netflix, but it's all of the same occultish, magical, demonic stuff that we just have to be aware of. Like me as an adult, Chucky is comical.
Right.
I'm like, this is stupid. Like,
Right.
This is stupid. I'm not actually scared. But if I allow my son to watch that, that's going to create fear in him that I don't think is worth exposing him to yet.
Right. No, you have to be aware of what it does to you, what it does to them, and what it does to you. Not long ago, I was mentoring someone in our church and our team, and they were struggling through just some like anxiety, some panic, some fear, some real fear. And then I found out that at night they were watching these like scary movies. And I was like, hey, do you not see the correlation between the fear that you are walking in your daily life and the fear that you're bringing into your bedroom late at night?
Right.
Like, and she was very like, no, those are not connected. I'm like, no,
this is funny. This soothes me.
Right. That's what it was. This
Right.
is like how I can turn my brain off. I'm like, no. This is actually like really something that I think is affecting you. I remember when I was pregnant with McKinley, I was reading these James Patterson books, and they're like mystery novels, but they're also like murder mystery novels. And there was one that was just very intense, and I was like reading it, and I was having these dreams, and like when you're pregnant, you have crazy dreams anyway, hormones, all the things. And so I remember telling Aaron, like, I don't know, I keep having these crazy dreams. And he's like, hey, do you not think those books you're reading might be associated with these dreams that you're having? And I was like, huh, I never thought of that. So I stopped reading it. Imagine that. The dreams went away.
100%.
And like, I think we sometimes don't give enough like respect to what we're actually bringing into our head, what we're bringing into our ears, what we're bringing into our mind, and how that it can really affect us.
I used to love watching, what's the name of the show? It's like a police show, Special Unit.
Oh yeah. Like
it's got
SVU
like,
kind of thing?
it's got Ice Cube or Ice T or one of those guys in it.
Yeah.
Which one is it?
Yeah, that's Special Victims
And
Unit.
so-
What is that?
yeah. And so I used to watch that. And then I realized that, dude, it's getting into my dreams.
Yeah,
It's getting into me because it's all sexually based. It's all about somebody getting raped, somebody getting molested,
Right.
someone getting murdered and their body all cut up.
Yeah.
And I would watch this show. I had it on this is back when we had DVR.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm DVRing it and I'm watching it every single week, watching this show. And I started and I was watching, there was a show in Chicago, police officers in Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago PD.
Chicago PD.
Yeah.
And dude, it's so much murder and so intense and
Yeah.
everybody's getting raped. And I was watching all this and it was like turning me up a little bit. And I realized this is like pornography.
Right.
It's just for violence.
Yeah.
And for like deviantness.
Yeah.
And I had to make a decision that I drew a new line in the sand for myself where I was like, I'm not going to watch this anymore.
Right.
Because it's affecting me.
Yeah.
If a guy watches pornography, it affects how he views every other woman.
Right.
Every other woman in
Right.
your like age demographic that you're attracted to is affected because of what you're watching. And I think as we watch this kind of content, man, it affects stuff.
Yeah. It's
One of the
super
most
true.
dangerous things about it is that it desensitizes us to the reality that there is a devil.
Yeah.
And there is demonic activity around us. And it turns into just a funny, like, oh man, it was just a movie.
Right.
Because we're watching, I remember years ago when Harry Potter came out, there was a big divide in the church.
Yeah.
Because it's this kids thing that's about spells and witches and warlocks.
Right.
People got mad.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I haven't let my kids watch Harry Potter. Because I understand the argument.
Right.
This is the gateway of
Right.
like that kind of content. And I think as parents, we just have to guard our kids of what we're going to allow them to engage in.
Well, because the world is not going to, is the biggest thing.
No,
And
they're going to put your child as a product.
Right.
They're pushing a product on your
Exactly. And the world we live in today, even from the years that you and I went trick-or-treating in Fall Festival, is drastically different. We already joked about it. Like there were not the same costumes then that there is now.
Yeah.
Even as far as all of the like scary, crazy ones.
Yeah.
And so like the world is not going to put lines in the sand for our kids. The world is not going to draw delineations, but we have to be intentional to do that. And like you said, the line's different for everybody. There might be somebody that's like, oh, I watch Chicago PD and it's fine for me. Cool. That's cool for you. We're not saying you're bad for watching Chicago PD.
No.
It's finding the line that's right for you and then understanding I have to constantly evaluate that line.
Yeah.
Like constantly, because also the world around us changes. And so what used to be a PG-13 movie that I might have allowed in my house to watch, I might not be able to allow anymore because the rules changed and the things are different. We just have to be aware of what we're allowing in, because it really can become a slippery slope of all kind of terrifying things. Yeah.
And so I think in October, we just have to be aware of where our line is.
Yeah.
Where's our line for us? Where's our line for our family? It's something you have to have a conversation with your spouse.
Yeah.
I had one verse that I wanted to read.
Do it.
That I think is the one that kind of gets brought up a lot around Halloween. It's Deuteronomy 18, verses 10 through 14. It says, let no one be found among you. Now it starts like real intense. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. Because of these same detestable practices, the Lord your God will drive out those nations before you. You must be blameless before the Lord your God. This is the verse that is most generally associated with like Halloween.
Yeah.
And when I read this for my house, the first sentence is really important. Let no one be found among you who.
Right.
Well, there's no one found among me who's
Right.
consulting witches.
Right.
There's no one among me that's
Right.
doing any of those things. Now, there might be people who are doing those things on this certain day or in this certain region, but they're not found among me.
Right.
And so yeah, man, there's some lines that we have to draw.
No, it's super important.
And I have a hard time with it every single year because as a church, we're party starters. You referenced it earlier, or maybe the last episode, that we love to throw a party. And so around here, on the Sunday closest to October 31st, we have a costume Sunday.
Right.
Like I said, I dressed up like Rocky. This year, I'm dressed up like a costume. I don't know if I should tell them yet.
I don't know.
I'm dressed up in a costume this year. And I'm torn because I know that there's families that draw the line in a farther location than maybe I draw it for my family.
Right.
And then I know that there's others who straight up wearing crystals and reading palms.
Right.
We had a lady who's on our worship team that we didn't even know it. She's tried out, signed up, got on our worship team. And then before we know it, we see her on social media that she's like reading people's fortunes. And so we had to have a conversation and say, sorry, this is not biblical. Here's what the Bible has to say. And she no longer attends the church, which is sad for me. But like, I have a hard time with it. I remember one year, well, for years as a church, we would help out. The police would do a fall festival.
Right.
And they call it fall festival, but it's a Halloween party.
Right.
Bounce houses and candy and all the things. And we would go and send hundreds of volunteers and help with this fall festival. And so we used our portable sound system and we set it up and we would play music. Mm-hmm. And they would give us kind of a playlist to play. Right. And we would play like the Monster Mash, you know? And we would play all these kind of famous kind of Halloween-y songs. And I remember that we played Michael Jackson, Thriller.
Yeah.
And I had a family come up to me, this is years ago. This is like Aristide beginning
Right.
years. I had this family come up to me and they said, Pastor, you should not be playing Michael Jackson through the church sound system. He's a pedophile. And I remember like hearing that.
Right.
And like understanding
Right.
they're like, you use these same speakers to sing worship out on Sunday.
Right.
And now you're playing like secular music
Right.
for a demonic holiday. And I remember being torn and I
Yeah.
didn't turn the music off and they got mad and they left the church.
Yeah.
They were there volunteering, wearing our t-shirt, coming to serve. And there was this big gap. And so all the things, I've had people that get mad that we have Santa Claus at Christmas at the
Right.
church. They get mad that we have an Easter bunny at Easter. And I understand that Jesus is the reason for the season of Christmas. But no one's worshiping Santa,
Right.
at least that are associated with us.
Right.
We say from the stage, we don't worshiping Santa Claus. He's just glitz and glam.
Right.
This is about Jesus. No one's worshiping the Easter bunny. This is about Jesus. And I think that with Halloween, there's not a Jesus association
Right.
like there is Christmas
Right,
and
right, right,
Easter.
right.
But that's the true is still that we're not celebrating the occult.
Well, and so the verse you read is very specifically talking about sin.
Yeah.
And so the reason why we're talking about drawing the lines of delineation in some of the things we allow into ourselves is because we understand that there's a very real enemy who's out to steal, to kill, and to destroy our life. That's his whole purpose and his whole job. So what we don't want to do is open the door to things that would allow him, like you said, that was watching Chicago PD, it was bringing almost like rage and violence into you, which
Right.
could have caused you to sin
Yeah.
in a violent way or in a rage-filled way. But at the same time, what you're talking about reminds me of this verse in 1 Corinthians. It says, I have become all things to all men, so that all men save some. So I do all things for the sake of the gospel, so that I may become a fellow partaker of it. And the point of it is, simply, is that we can be in the world. That's what
Yeah.
it means, that whole phrase we hear all the time. We can be in the world. We can love our neighbor when we trick-or-treating, but we're not partaking in sin. If you're not
Yeah.
partaking in sin, chill out like a little bit in some things. You were not partaking in sin by
Right.
playing Michael Jackson in a church speaker.
No.
That's not a sinful thing. I understand that that could be associated with sin, but to who? To you, it was
Yeah.
not sin. And so I think it's just understanding that like we have opportunities as a church to reach people who might never come to our church.
Right.
If we were having they're going to dress up and give out candy to our kid. Hey, I'm going to go check out what they're, and when they're here with us, we have an opportunity to present them with Jesus.
Yeah.
And so like, I just think that is a piece that we sometimes neglect to speak to is that, hey, we're just doing our best. We're doing we say we'll do anything as long as it's not sin to reach people for the love
Yeah.
of God. And it's an important piece.
In that portion of scripture, Paul talks about how he wouldn't even eat meat if he could win some. And people use that as an excuse to say that, we should be vegan. But what Paul was saying is that in that day, a lot of the meat that they would eat would have been sacrificed to a false god, to a
Right,
false
right,
idol.
right.
And so what Christians were doing was buying this discounted meat and eating it.
Right.
And that was offending some Jewish people that they were eating this meat sacrificed. Paul was like, I don't have any problem with this meat.
Right.
This meat is meat. Those are false gods. You're getting a discount. Eat it up.
Right. It doesn't matter.
But if me eating this tainted spiritual meat offends some, I won't eat it.
Right.
And for me, letting my kids wear a costume and me wearing a costume on a Sunday is the exact in the opposite fashion.
Right.
If me wearing a costume and allowing our church to have a fun celebratory party day is going to win some, then I think it's worth the gamble.
Correct.
I think it's worth it because do you know what's happening in the world?
Except now you said gamble, and I'm like, are we allowed to say gamble?
It's worth
joking.
it's worth the risk to me.
Right.
Because the people that left over Michael Jackson
Right.
would have left over something else.
Right.
Because that's not where I draw my line.
Right. It would have been
I don't
some
think
other.
that Michael Jackson is a godsend to humanity. I think the dude had a bunch of screws loose, but I sure am jamming to Thriller.
Right.
And so yeah, that's just not where I draw my line.
Yeah.
And like, here's what I know. in Arlington, Texas, parents are buying their kids costumes. Kids want a place to go that they can go and go on a little parade and get some candy and go and smile
Exactly.
and get their pictures taken.
Right.
And I would rather them come here than only go out into the world.
Exactly.
And then while we're on it, the whole, well, what about the occult that prays over candy and does curses over candy and puts it in your kid's bowl? Well, the Bible says that the prophets, that the apostles were poisoned and snake bitten and didn't die. Now, people take that way out of context and bring snakes into churches and start drinking arsenic and do a bunch of crazy
Right.
stuff. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that he who is in me is greater than he who is in the world.
Exactly.
And so some voodoo doctor can do whatever hocus pocus he wants to do on a Tootsie Roll, and I'm going to be just fine if I eat it, because my God is way stronger than whatever potion they're going to try to hex they're going to put on me. Now, that doesn't mean that we walk in foolishness. Don't put yourself in those sketchy, compromising
that's such
positions.
a Pandora's box of like, I mean, you don't know who's like the packaging person at Target.
That's what I'm saying.
And so like maybe they're praying over the things too. Like we
Right.
can't be living in fear of what if over things that
Yeah.
we have no control over, and that yet we do have the power
Yeah.
and the authority to walk in knowing that it's not going to touch us. It's
Yeah.
not going to affect us.
Guys, this is a sticky one. This is a sticky one.
Maybe they all hate us now.
Maybe what if we fully just defended both sides and now we're just canceled everywhere?
Maybe.
Sorry, all we're trying to do is be honest of what our process is.
Yeah.
And man, we hope that you join us at More Church on, what is it, the 28th?
The
Or is it the
29th.
29th.
Right? 29th?
We're
Yeah.
having a family-friendly costume party.
That's it. It's called Costume Sunday.
Yeah.
9 a.m. and 11 a.m. There'll be candy for all the kiddos, and the adults are going to dress up too, because our church is just fun. That's
Yeah.
the thing I love about it, is that because of the heart of our church, it's so welcoming to all the people, and they all do it. They
Yeah.
go all out, and they have a blast. We do it for a lot of our house parties, which is our baptism
For my
Sundays.
own- for my
we do
birthday
theme
party, we had
Sundays.
a theme,
We
yeah.
do all kind of theme things.
Me and Aaron were dressed up like crisscross for our last house party, baptizing people.
Yes.
Why not have fun
Yes.
while we're doing this Jesus thing?
Exactly. That's all.
So guys, really the takeaway is that you have to draw a line for you and for your family.
Right.
And then be okay with it. And be careful as we're judging where other people's lines are.
No, it's important. If it's sin, then like that's an important thing to draw a line in. If it's not sin, then you don't need to be judging anyone else, because good grief.
Moms and dads, let's protect our kids.
It's really important.
Just don't let them watch whatever they want to watch. I know that they say it's not going to scare them, it's going to be fine. But let's just be careful to sensitize those little eyes and those little ears.
It's hard. It's hard work, and it's hard because they get mad when they want to do what they want to do.
And when all
like-
their friends watch
And
it.
when the friends watch it. And like, can I tell you that I was 14, 15 years old, and my parents were still saying no to lots of movies and lots of things. And I was so mad. I was so mad at that age. But now I'm so grateful. I'm grateful because I was not smart enough to know what I could and could not do.
Yeah.
And the fact that they did that for me, and also I don't hate them for it. I think
Yeah.
that as parents we're so afraid, well, maybe they'll hate me and it'll scar them for life. No, we've been giving them for a very short amount of time to steward, and we're the only parents that they ever have. And so it's a really important thing to take the time. And now on the other side of it, with my kids basically grown, I'm like, yep, it was worth it. Yep. And they don't ever bring up the fights of the things I said no to now, because they don't even remember.
It's a hassle.
It's a hassle.
Now, if one of our kids wants to watch a movie, I watch it first.
Yeah.
Titus loves dinosaurs. And so we, now that he's 8, have started watching through Jurassic Park movies, but I've watched them first in their entirety. I look at, there's some websites out there, I get the profanity,
Yeah.
I see if there's any nudity, I guard if it's okay. And you know what? I messed one up. He really wanted to watch Godzilla vs. King Kong.
Oh, yeah.
And I told him okay. And we watched it on a Sunday afternoon, and I fell asleep while we were watching it. And he watched all of Godzilla vs. King Kong by himself, and it's full of swear words. And so now it's a conversation that he and I have to regularly have, because he says, well, Daddy, I already saw it. I already heard it. Why can't I watch this? You said it's too many swear words. You already let me watch this. And I'm like, I know, buddy, that was my mistake.
Right.
And
That's
so,
super good, bro. That's super good, because even if you've let them do it before and you make new lines in the sand,
Yes.
it's really okay if you're not going back on your word, you're making new decisions.
Yeah.
And that's super good. You have to say that.
No, so we've got to just be aware. There's one, I don't remember which one it is. There's a Jurassic Park movie where there's a big dinosaur that's crawling on the roof
Yeah.
of it. It's too scary.
Yeah.
It's too scary for him. He's not ready.
And he's
not ready
relentless.
to watch it.
He's relentless. He's given me his dissertation about why he should be
Yes.
allowed to watch it. But even though kids are relentless, we have to be more relentless for
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
because the world won't be.
Lillian loves watching these girls on YouTube
Yeah.
that do like clothing reviews and do
Yeah.
whatever stuff they're doing.
Super.
And Rachel is so good listening to the tone,
Right.
the attitude that these girls have, because sometimes they're talking about how the parents are stupid or they're mean to each other, call each other ugly, and Rachel goes in and says, "Hey, Lily, we're not going to watch this."
Yeah.
Because allowing that sets an attitude in my daughter
Yep.
that it's okay for her to act like that.
Super important.
You're like, Pastor, what are we talking about? We're just talking about Halloween. I know, but it's all on the lines that we draw for our
Right.
families. And so if you haven't drawn any, draw some.
Yeah. Super good. Okay.
Good.
That's all.
Love you.
Love y'all.
See ya. Don't
Bye.
hate us.